Hi, Dr. Robert Selig, and again, thank you for watching. And today we're continuing our weight loss series on the 7 major roadblocks to why we cannot successfully lose weight. And today we're going to talk about some major factors, which is chronic inflammation, chronic infections, and the gut microbiome. The microbiome, that's really your gut bacteria. So we're going to really talk about that. We're also going to try to talk a little bit about heavy metals and leaky gut. So those are some of the themes, food sensitivities and leaky gut. Those are the themes that we're going to be talking about. Let's get started. All right, so when we're kind of looking at the whole picture of how to get healthy, how we're dealing with this weight loss, let's start with the basic of a cell. Now, if you can figure out how to heal one cell, you can heal them all. So whether we're talking a brain cell, a heart cell, a kidney cell, a liver cell, doesn't matter. The basic components of a cell is basically a solar system. So when we look at a cell, the outer membrane represents mercury, which delineates what comes in and comes out. It's the communication of the cell. And then we have the cytoplasm, that's the water element that represents the moon. The nucleus represents the sun. The mitochondria is Mars, the powerhouse. And inside that mitochondria, you need this important element called copper, and that's related to Venus. So we see the whole solar system is within a cell. So we have to understand how to heal a cell. And this is the basic function of how we're going to get healthy, how we're going to really influence our bodies to start burning fat. Now let's go right up to the brain and let's go to our thoughts, because big area, one of the major stumbling blocks is our thoughts. And there's a whole branch of medicine now we call it's epigenetics. So when we think of genetics, what influences our genetics is our epigenetics. And what is epigenetics? Epigenetics is really, it's our lifestyle, it's our thoughts, which turns on and off our genes. So if we believe we're always going to be sick, that is true. If we believe we can get healthy, if we can lose weight, it's how we visualize ourselves, it's how we interpret the world, it's how we see the world, how we interact with the world, and how we're living more in harmony with the laws of nature. So we have to start to understand how our thoughts are so important on this journey of losing weight and getting healthy. So the epigenetics is a huge, huge factor, and you can see how man is evolving and how we're de-evolving, how man is meeting machine and we're becoming the cyborg. And you start to see this in the younger children. In the younger children, you're starting to see obesity and autoimmunity and all these chronic diseases because we're not getting out into nature. We become so engrossed with the computer and technology and iPhones, and nothing wrong with that, so I don't want to knock any of that. It's just there has to be a balance between, being able to understand the importance of connecting to nature on our development of getting healthy and connecting to the solar system. So this is all part of the healing journey. So we have to really understand epigenetics is huge. It's truly one of the biggest stumbling blocks, because we have to look at what does fat represent in the human body. Fat has some primary functions, insulation and protection. So we have to look at where we're insulating and protecting our emotions. So when we're not dealing with the themes of our consciousness, where we're kind of just sweeping it under the rug, we're not being honest to ourselves, we start to insulate and protect ourselves, and the fat cells will keep growing because we have to look at it energetically. And we'll get a little bit more into the energetics of this whole thing. And I want to kind of tie everything in as we're putting closure to this subject of weight loss resistance. And as we understand our epigenetics, we have to really decide you want to live. You want to live, you want to be healthy. And this is why I always say all roads lead to the liver, because within the liver is truly where we live. The liver is the general. It does 500 or so biochemical processes in the body. And understanding that if if the liver does so many jobs and we're not really understanding the Jupiterian energy of the liver, because Jupiterian energy represents the jovial nature, it's leading with our hearts, not with our egos. So we have to understand how this energy really is going to manifest in ourselves. And when we look at Jupiter, it's the largest planet in the solar system, and the liver is the largest organ in our inner system. Internal organ we're talking about, largest internal organ. And so Jupiter is gas, it's growth and expansion. It's a gaseous planet, so when our liver starts to go offline, we develop gas and bloating, we develop the girth, we start growing around our waistline, we start to understand how this energetic relationship between our solar system and our inner solar system start really playing out. So again, it's having a deeper understanding than just sitting around, I gotta burn calories, I gotta count calories and all that nonsense. And there's some truth to that, but it's taking it a little bit deeper is where we're trying to go with this. So understanding if we're really getting to the root of how the liver plays a huge function in how we're going to get healthy and lose weight, that means we got to take detoxification to the next level, because detoxification should be the mantra. In this day and age, if we don't understand the importance of detoxification, you could take all the supplements, you could take all the vitamins, all the nutrients, you could eat all the perfect foods, but if you don't understand how to detoxify the body, you're going to hit that major roadblock. So we really have to understand the importance of connecting to the detoxification, not just the physical detox, it's the emotional detox. And here in Chinese medicine, we see that we have, the 5 major organs that we talk about, and it's broken down to fire, water, earth, air, and when those 4 elements come together, the 5th element in Chinese medicine is wood. Now, what is wood? Wood is a tree. A tree can only be a tree if it has the fire of the sun, the air, the water, and the earth, and then we can create the tree of life, the tree of knowledge, the bronchial tree, the aortic tree. We become the tree with our trunk, our branches, our roots, and our fruits. So we are a tree, symbolically speaking. And so it's these 4 elements coming together to create the quintessence, that 5th element. So when that Jupiter energy representing the liver, when we're not being jovial and happy and somehow life has thrown us curveballs and our emotions become more anger and we become more resentful, we become more bitter. If we're not purging these emotions, you will not purge the weight off. So you gotta make that connection between your emotions and holding on to the weight. So maybe we need to let go of that boyfriend. Maybe we need to quit that job. Maybe we need to revisit our relationships with our mothers and fathers and siblings. And this is where it's an inner journey. And that's what I want to point out, because we're not discussing that in natural medicine. We've hit the biochemistry, we've hit the food, we've hit all the lab testing and all that stuff. But understanding the energetics to this whole thing, because where science is going to take off to that next level is when we leave the biochemical model and we get into the energetic model. That's where the true advances in health will really be made, because it's energy. Energy animates matter. And it's just kind of picture a artist who's going to paint a painting. The artist has the idea in his mind, and it's going to take, his conceptual ideas, and to take it from the invisible to the visible, it will take paint and canvas to take what is in here to the physical. And that's how energy is. So we got to understand how our energetics and how our emotions and all of these things are tied into how we're going to get healthy and how we're going to lose weight. So I just wanted to give you a different angle and a different slant on how we're really going to take it to the next level when we go on that inward journey. All right. Now, chronic inflammation. So when we're inflamed, whatever the inflammation is coming from, whether it's the poor diet, the emotional stressors, the unresolved issues of childhood, just not being able to deal with life and all the turmoil and all the things and all the curveballs that have been thrown at us. So the stresses, the physical stresses, the emotional stresses, the chemical stresses. So we have to look at all these things are causing inflammation. So when the house is on fire, you're not going to lose weight, because when you're always producing inflammation, you're going to start to produce a lot of what we call cytokines. And when you're producing these cytokines, they're immune cells, and these immune cells require energy. And if they're requiring energy, they're not going to be using fat for energy. They're going to need a quick source of energy, because we're calling on an army, and an army of macrophages, a navy of neutrophils. We're calling on the special SEALs team, which is our alpha tumor necrosis factor, or whatever the cytokine will be. We're calling on all these things which need quick energy, which is sugar. So we're always going to be in that sugar burning mode if we're inflamed. So we have to understand how important inflammation is, and where our attention should be is controlling the inflammation. The science is there, all the major universities are starting to pinpoint that, yes, inflammation is a major obstacle to the cure, and we're starting to really make these connections, and especially with obesity and metabolic syndrome. But you can really tie in whatever the chronic disease, whether it's the cancer, the metabolic, the obesity, the autoimmune, chronic inflammation is at the hallmark of all of them. So again, the mindset should be, where are we inflamed? What's causing us to increase this inflammation in our body that's always slowing down our metabolism? Because again, we go into sugar burning, not fat burning. And we talked about the cytokine storm and how all these mediators slow down the metabolism, and basically you become insulin resistant, and you'll never lose weight when you have chronic inflammation. So again, the focus is put out the fire. That cytokine storm, eventually all this inflammation leads to the more insidious diseases down the line. This is why, as we're losing weight, we're getting healthy. And that's really one of the take-home messages that I want you to understand is, it's not just losing the weight, it's how we're really getting healthy emotionally, spiritually, physically. And this is really the hero's journey of getting healthy. Now, this is really the next breakthrough in science. When we talk about the microbiome, and this is the inner ecosystem. Metchnikoff, a Nobel Prize winner back in the 1800s, he was a contemporary of Louis Pasteur. He always said it's the inner terrain that runs the show. And we got pasteurized, we got lobotomized, we got hypnotized by the germ theory. Now what we need to do is not to dismiss the germ theory, but we need to understand it's the terrain. So the terrain will allow those germs to harvest, which will lead to that chronic inflammation, which will lead to all the more deadly diseases that will plague us in our life if we don't understand how important this gut microbiome is. And it is a huge player. And again, what do we call bacteria? We call it culture. So this outer culture in our society is influencing our inner culture. We've been inundated with what we should eat and processed foods, and Hollywood and Madison Avenue selling us everything under the sun that is disrupting our inner terrain. So what we need to do, we need to be the hero, and we need to understand we need real food. We need to deal with our real emotions. We need to have outlets of expression, whether it's through art, through music, through journaling, through talking. Whatever the form of expression is, we need to understand it's so important on our healing journey, because the microbes are really determining how things are being broken down in your body, how hormones are really communicating, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So again, the focus is on reducing the inflammation, healing your gut, and the whole microbiome. So it's balancing out the bacteria in our bodies, not feeding the bacteria the bad stuff, and it thrives off of the sugar, and then the opportunistic, more the parasitic type of bacteria and fungus and viruses flourish in that environment. So when we start to change the terrain, as Metchnikov told us, over 100 years ago, this is where we need to really start zoning in. And remember, as the bacteria, as we become more parasitic in our ways and our virulence, this is where we have to start seeing how we're influencing our bacteria, and the bacteria really are running the show. So again, it's tuning into this area because it's so important. And over the next 10 to 20 years, you're going to see how this will be the leading area in medicine that we'll be exploring, and we're just starting to understand this as science is catching up to this knowledge. So again, the enemies of the good bacteria, we know it's the toxic water, the municipal tap water. It's poison. We have to really understand how to take water to the next level. So maybe we're getting off of the tap poison and we're starting to drink more spring waters, and then we can have good, better, best. So maybe we start becoming a water hunter. We start gathering real spring waters. So again, get off the tap water, take it to the next level. Maybe you buy some good spring water at the stores. Then better yet, you go out and hunt your own spring water, and you can go to findaspring.com, and that will tell you every spring in the United States that you can go to and really get high quality water that hasn't been processed, treated with UV light, chlorinated, fluorinated. All that stuff does is kill the microbiology in there and takes out the life, and water is life. So understanding some of the things that are really destroying our microbiome, our bacteria, it's the stress, it's the food, it's the toxins, it's the chronic infections. So having a deeper understanding of these things will be a huge way we're going to start to really understand how we're going to really lose the fat weight and get healthy. So, physiological actions of these intestinal organisms. What do these bacteria really do? It's your second liver. They're involved in detoxification. They're responsible for controlling inflammation. They're sending signals via the nervous system. They are the communicators. Now, just think common sense. The microbes have been around for billions of years. They've been existing a lot longer than us. They know how to survive. We thought we can come out in the 1940s with the whole antibiotic thing, and we thought we could come in and wipe these things out. Now, as a result of this indiscriminate use of antibiotics and going crazy and just dumping them into everything, especially into the animals that we're eating, it really has done a number. These microorganisms are responsible for vitamin production. They regulate, educate, and manage and support the immune response. They are the real ticket, the real deal. They're involved in nutrient absorption. They're responsible for our neurotransmitters, our GABA, our glutamate. It's going to make the tryptophan, which will be converted into serotonin. These are some of the real brain makers that we need. So we have to understand this is the second brain that influences this. And it's a two-way street, the chicken or the egg. Your guess is as good as mine, but what we need to know is how we're going to feed this the right stuff if we're really going to take our health to that next level. There's two types of bacteria in the gut. There's the bacteriatides and the firmicutides. The bacteriotides are associated with the healthy ones. The firmicutes are associated with obesity and all the autoimmune diseases. So we know we have many different classes, probably over 30,000 different bacteria. But again, just broken down to two groups, Bacteroides and Firmicutes. And when we start to research and look at the scientific literature, we see that the ones that are obese, the ones that have the cancer, the ones that have the autoimmune diseases, their Firmicutes are out of balance to the Bacteroides, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So this is really where science is going, and so we have to be able to influence this gut microbiome if we're going to take it to that next level. So what are some foods that we need? First start feeding your body the prebiotics, such as raw chicory root, raw Jerusalem artichoke, dandelion greens. And it's kind of ironic. You see the man is putting all the chemicals on his dandelions, and this man will develop, cancer, and the cure was right in front of him as he's poisoning his dandelions when he could have been tincturing and making tonics and medicine out of the dandelions, because that's a liver herb. And so we have to really reconnect to nature, and really our souls, our feet, our souls aren't touching the earth. Symbolically, our souls are disconnected from the earth, and this is where we're changing the energy as we get more energetic, so we can influence the biochemistry to go where we want it to go. So also raw garlic, raw leeks, raw and cooked onions, raw asparagus. These are what we call prebiotics. One of my favorite prebiotics is aloe vera juice. That one's amazing. I don't have that on here, but drinking a shot of aloe vera juice really is an amazing prebiotic, as it heals the intestinal flora, as it prepares the microbes to really start, tapping into the good stuff. Some probiotics, understanding how every culture on planet Earth has fermented food. So the original condiments were the fermented foods. It was the fermented tomatoes, the pickles, and all that stuff we got away from. They became corporatized, they became filled with sugar, and we took out the fermenting process and became this, quick corporate ketchup and pickled relish. We're throwing that junk on our sandwiches when we should be really adding these real fermented foods, because these fermented foods give you biodiversity. They give you all these different microbes that are going to help break down, whatever we're eating. So the importance of probiotics is huge. I'll be happy to sell you a probiotic, and I'll sell you the best probiotic, but ultimately you want to have biodiversity. You want to ferment from this farmer, ferment this food from this farmer. So we're really taking in all the diversity. And when you chop up unity, you get diversity. So it's understanding this biodiversity is what really is going to make us healthy. All right, moving along, the gut microbiome, things that influence it for the better and things that influence it for the worse. We know that the antibiotic drugs are one of the worst things ever, and I've gone on record as saying that antibiotics will go down as the worst medical blunder in human history. And I don't want you to think, I'm knocking anything, because I'm not into knocking anything, because in that 1% chance and that 1% time where the antibiotic is necessary, it will save a life. I'm talking about the indiscriminate use of antibiotics for every cold, for every flu, for every virus, for every ache, for every pain, for everything. We haven't really looked at the real natural ways of getting healthy. And what do I bring to the table? I've been looking at this for 30 years, but just by watching, by observing, observing my own family and seeing the roads that they went down in their, health decline. And then you study the people that are healthy. I studied the yogis, the monks, and, a lot of the centenarians on this planet. And what do they do right? They're connected to nature. They're getting food from nature. Nothing should ever come from a can, a bag, or a box. That we got to throw that old, paradigm out the window, and we got to take it again to the next level and reconnect to the earth. So all these things will either affect it negatively or positively, your gut microbiome. All right. Psychoneuroimmunology. Let's get back to the bugs, okay? Because the bugs, like I said, are so key to us getting healthy. And when we look at the bugs, some of the more flagrant fouls in medicine is we're not delivering babies the way we should. And I see in my population, these young children that have been delivered via C-section, not vaginally delivered. So when the baby is coming out through the birth canal, and it's going to get the bacteria from the mother. It's going to get the bifidus and the lactobacillus. But when it's coming out through the cesarean section, it's not getting the bacteria. So we're already putting our infants and our newborns at a disadvantage from the get-go. So in contrast to individuals that are born via C-section, they're immediately exposed to bacteria in the hospital, on skin workers, in the ambient air. That's the C. diff. That's also, the staph A. As we know, these are some of the bacteria that are now antibiotic resistant. These are the more pathogenic, more pro-inflammatory. So really, we got to take this to the next level. We got to look at all the things that we're doing. There's a higher prevalence of autoimmunity, asthma, allergies, and obesity in individuals born via C-section all throughout life. Now, what I want to kind of hone in on, the next thing we look at after birthing, the first 6 months of life, is exposure to antimicrobial compounds. So children that are given early antibiotics is one of the worst things that we can do for the health of our children. And so, the first 6 months of life have somewhat of a permanent alteration in their gut microbiome. Some of when we've taken antibiotics at a very early age, we're destroying some of the bacteria that may never come back. So when patients are coming to me, and I've known that their children, that are coming to see me that have been on antibiotics, that have been delivered via C-section, we got to have really aggressive probiotic, prebiotic strategies to really rebuild this immune system, because again, if we don't, you see the autoimmunity, you see the obesity, you see all the metabolic things. So it's really an integral part if we're going to take our health to that next level. So just wanted to kind of bring that point home. And again, antibiotics resistance has been one of the world's most pressing public health problems. It causes significant danger and suffering people who have common infections that once were easily treatable with antibiotics. When antibiotics fail to work, the consequences are longer lasting illnesses, more doctor visits, or extended hospital stays. So, this report is coming from the CDC. This isn't just me, the chiropractor, making this stuff up. You are bacteria. That's take-home message. If you're 100 trillion cells, you're 10 times more bacteria than you are cells. So that's some of the take-home messages that I want you to take away from this video today. This was an amazing book, The Missing Microbe. Dr. Martin Blaser reaches back to the discovery of antibiotics, which ushered in the golden age of medicine, and then traces how subsequent overuse of these seeming wonder drugs have left its mark on our system, contributing to the rise of what Blaser calls our modern plagues: obesity, asthma, allergies, diabetes, and certain forms of cancer. Now, Blaser is no lightweight. This guy is a heavy hitter in the world of medicine. He is a professor at, I think it's the University of New York Medical School, one of the New York, I'm not exactly sure which school he's from, but he is a heavy hitter, and I encourage you to start reading some of these amazing books on the gut microbes. Dr. Perlmutter is a game changer too. This guy's a neurologist, and he just wrote a whole book on the microbiome. We're also discovering within the microbiome, there's something that's called the it's called the estrobiome. The estrobiome is how the bacteria and the other microbes in their DNA are influencing estrogen, and the estrogen that's causing our, ovarian cancers, prostate cancers, breast cancers, uterine cancers. And this is where science is going to start connecting these microbes in this estrobiome to health. And once we start to make this connection, we can really, not just, again, losing weight, that's a side effect of getting healthy. It really is about getting healthy, and that's always been my message. So some good books that I'm encouraging my patients to read, so you're not just hearing it from me, you're not just seeing it on a YouTube video, you're seeing some well-researched medical doctors really taking it to the next level. So kind of proud of seeing these medical doctors really expanding the horizon. Now, a little bit about leaky gut. So when we have these toxins, these heavy metals, the lead, the arsenic, the mercuries, the petrochemicals, the xenoestrogens, when we have the viruses, the bacteria, the limes, and the candida, all these things start to penetrate this one cell wall, this epithelial cell, and it starts to get through. They start to inflame and break through. And this is only a one cell wall, and when all this garbage gets into the blood, that's going to cause an immune response. That's going to, again, call in the army of macrophages, neutrophils, and then we get this chronic inflammation over and over. And so we have to heal this leaky gut, and we have some good designer protocols to really help accelerate the healing of our leaky gut. And again, nothing works until we understand the food component to it, the emotion component to it. So it's a big thing to kind of connect all the dots in this picture. But leaky gut is huge, so we really have to understand how all these foreign invaders are getting into our blood because we're eating, we're injecting the wrong culture into us. We're buying into what Madison Avenue is selling us, and we're not listening to our innate intelligence. And also gluten, we could talk forever about gluten, but I'm not going to, there's so much information out there on gluten, but avoid it like the plague. Gluten in Latin means glue. It's gluing and gooing up all your organs and causing unbelievable amounts of inflammation. That's all I'll say on gluten. The Age of Toxicity. Okay, again, the mantra is detoxification. So part of detoxification is avoiding the toxins. Ladies, open up your purses, look at your lipstick, tell me if you see lead on your lipstick, and unless you're putting on an organic lipstick, I guarantee there is lead in your lipstick. In the lifetime of a woman, just by putting lipstick on her mouth, she'll probably ingest over 10 pounds of lead in her lifetime just by that one, thing that she does. Okay, and we know how bad lead is, the lead chips in the paint, and we know how it's so neurologically detrimental to our health. But it's not just the lead, it's the arsenic, it's the mercury, it's all these heavy metals. And so we have ways of really testing for the heavy metals. So I like to do a hair tissue mineral analysis so we can test the mineral balance, we can test the heavy metals. So when we find that someone has heavy metals, we have to understand detoxification. There's a science and an art to detoxification. It isn't going to happen overnight because, for example, if you're deficient in zinc, we know zinc is responsible for your blood vessels. So if your blood vessels don't have zinc, you're going to start to have holes in your blood vessels. And it can use cadmium, a heavy metal, a very toxic metal, to replace what zinc should be doing because you're deficient in zinc. So the cadmium will actually have a function in the body because it's kind of filling in for the absence of zinc, and it will patch up the holes in your blood vessels, but it will also start to clog your arteries over time. So it's helping on one level, but it's going to be in the long term, because of your zinc deficiency, it's going to really be putting a major stress on your arterial arteries, veins, causing, stenosis and plaquing and all that garbage that ends up causing the strokes, the heart attacks, and all the stuff we don't want. So when we detox cadmium too quickly out of the body, you're going to see the patient crash. So there's an art and science to intelligently detoxifying the body. I have mercury in my mouth, but mercury is actually antimicrobial. If I pull out the mercury too quickly and I haven't resolved my gut infection, all of a sudden mercury gets taken out, which is antimicrobial. It's also a poison. I don't want to give you the misrepresentation of how bad mercury is. It should never be in there, but it is antimicrobial. That's why they were putting it in our mouths. So all of a sudden we pull out the mercury, but I never dealt with this chronic gut infection. Then this chronic infection, after the mercury's taken out, goes rampant. And then I'm in the emergency room and I'm knocking on heaven's door because that infection was never dealt with. And then we try detoxing too aggressively. So again, if you think you can do this on your own, God bless, and I wish you the best. But in my experience, most people do not have a deeper understanding on how to detox intelligently. There is an art and a science to detoxification. So this is why I've put my programs together. So I know we're like lab rats in this environment that we're growing up in. There's over 80,000 different toxins, and we don't know the long-term effects of all these toxins. And what do I see? Again, I told you, I observe. I see 1 out of 2 people dying of heart disease, 1 out of 2 getting cancer, the autoimmunity, the obesity, the depression. And once we start cleaning these things up, we can really take our health back. But again, I'm gonna really strongly advise my patients or my population to seek professional help, because you may do a Google search, you may read something on detox, and you go into it with not a deeper knowledge or understanding of physiology, of heavy metals and stuff like that. So there really is an art and science to this detoxification. This is why you need to seek some professional help who can guide you through this, who's been doing it for 30 years, who really has been observing this phenomena since I can remember. We'll move on now. The human body does not like heavy metals floating around in the blood serum. It's just they're toxic things, and they're going to cause a wave of inflammation. They're going to disrupt hormones. So there's so many complications. So again, the mantra is detoxification, but again, done intelligently. So these toxins block the cell's ability to take in the oxygen, exchange the nutrients, give back the waste products. So we're sludging up and clogging up our cells. And again, if we can figure out how to heal one cell, we can heal them all. And that's really what we're trying to do, is to educate you on how to get healthy. So again, getting healthy, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, either way, you're correct. The late, great Henry Ford once said that. And so it's our thoughts, that's our epigenetics. We have to really understand how we are responsible for our lives. And our lives is, do you choose to be healthy or you choose to be sick? The choice is yours. So whatever the mind can conceive and truly believe, you will achieve. So I look forward to helping you on your healing journey, and thank you for watching this video. Have a good day.